Going live in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Here we are.
We are. We're live. No one's here yet. This is what I love about this show. You can see if people are live. Silent night. Holy night. All is dark. All is bright. I don't know the words, in case you hadn't guessed.
That was an amazing. I can honestly say I've never heard Silent Night on a washboard before.
Well, you know, if you come here, there's all sorts of things that happen, like washboards doing Silent Night and my awful singing. So here we are.
Here we are.
Friday with friends. Are you ready to knock me out with your killer punch?
I'm ready to spar. Got my gloves on.
Round one starts now.
Oh, do it. Let's go. I'm ready. Although I probably won't keep these on the whole time because you know what? They get rather warm. I have newfound respect for, I mean, on so many levels, not just because they get warm, but, you know. All right.
So we have people here. We've got Scott Moore. Hooray for Scott.
Woo!
We love Scott. And Rachel Hedman, who must have caught All Is Bright.
Rachel! Hi, Rachel.
And no event of storytelling would be complete without Alan.
Oh, yay, Alan.
Oh, and the other Scott Moore's here too. We've got two Scott Moores. That's
fascinating.
Oh, he's on Facebook and YouTube. He's tricky, that Scott.
Wow.
You gotta watch Scott. He's a good friend of mine. He's up in Vermont.
Hi, Scott. Nice to meet you.
Kind of near the Burlington area. I look so big, and I need to back up a bit so that I don't.
I mean, you are life size. I'm fun size.
You are.
So.
So they used to. I can't tell that story, but there was yes, there was somebody that we knew who was quite a piece of work.
It says your video is really muted, Simon. From Dale. Thank you, Dale.
Let me check to see where my audio is coming out of.
Thank you so much for pointing that out, Dale. That's really helpful.
Yes.
Is my audio okay?
You coming in loud and clear. All right, Dale. So how's that, Dale? Is that any better?
For me too, actually, for hearing you.
And I like Rachel's comment that she says, "I need Scott's advice on how to clone oneself."
Me too, Rachel. That'd be a great skill.
It is a great skill. Just shuffle over a bit more. There we go. Now I'm in the middle. So, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Friday with Friends. It's already 3 minutes past and I haven't said that properly yet. Welcome to my guest, Krisitn Pedemonti.
Ready to spar.
Okay, thanks, Dale. I appreciate that. Yeah, I have my wrong microphone turned on. I've got all sorts of different things hooked up these days, and I'm trying to get used to it. So I thought I would go for like the caddy look today if she was going to be boxing me, because I don't have any boxing gloves. Hey, Pete's here as well, Pete Abdallah. So Pete, I think you and Pete would get on really well with everybody. Where is he? You haven't met him, have you?
No.
He's a really good storyteller down in Florida. Mo Reynolds is here. Yeah,
Mo. Yay, Mo.
Oops, hang on, pushed the wrong button. There we go. Mo Reynolds is here. She's so Pete and Mo and I and a whole bunch of other people. Diane Macklin was one of them. She was. We were all performing together. It doesn't feel like this year at all, but it was in January.
I feel like another lifetime ago.
Yeah, it really does. Especially British. I am feeling especially British this morning. So I got to show the whole setup because it looks a little bit more like ancient.
Oh wow! Super cool.
So I'm going for the ancient look today. And Tama, or Tama, how do I pronounce that?
Tama.
Yeah, she's joined us. She loves us both apparently. I don't think I met her.
Tama, so good to have you here.
Oh, my friend Marek. Sweater weather. It is sweater weather here in New Hampshire.
You have some lobster.
I know, it's a bit chilly this morning.
Hello, Jane. Extra hugs to Jane. Hi, Jane.
What do you mean? So when you say she's subdued, is she quiet?
I
or
think
does
that's
she
a
already
hint.
need to turn up a notch? I'm not sure what that means
That's
really.
a hint there.
That's so funny. It's the glass of whiskey in the back. Well, it's water actually, or is it? Maybe it's gin or vodka. Not at this time of the day, mate. Whew, that would be too much for me. So, Kristin, how you doing?
I'm feeling good. I'm ready to spar. I'm ready. Bring it on. I'm ready. The gloves.
I'm gonna hide.
No, no, I'm a hugger, not a fighter. Everybody knows that. I mean, and like I said before, the only thing I fight about is, hey, let's see each other for all our amazing multi dimensions, and let's have compassion. We can fight for that,
It's true.
and really seeing each other as complete human beings. I'm going to actually take the gloves off now. So
There you go. So you don't get
you
sweaty
are
hands. There's nothing worse than sweaty hands.
right.
Well, there's lots of things worse than sweaty hands actually, but we don't have to talk about any of those. So I was yesterday. So talking about like joy and happiness and everything, I was telling stories yesterday up in Colebrook, which is 2 hours and 40 minutes north of here. Yeah, hug fights. I like that idea. And I was telling spooky story, and it was so much fun. It was a whole bunch of kids. I think the oldest ones, apart from the kids who were helping out the organizers, they were like I think they were like 8 or 9 years of age. And so I started off with a bunch of silly, funny ghost stories, and then I told Talipo, which is I do a really dark, creepy version, and I could see the kids getting closer to their parents and their friends that were next to them as I was telling the story. And then at the end, this one kid who was like leaning right up against his mom, he was like, "That was so spooky. It was so good." And it was just absolutely brilliant to like see that in a group of people, and like not just pick one kid to look at real quickly on the screen, and like and hear them because it's live and everything and in person. And they were all 25 feet away from me, and none of them came up. We even when they came up afterwards, they were still like 10, 15 feet away from me, which was really nice. So it was, that was so much fun. And one of the kids, because I was wearing this long black coat, well, not black, it's actually navy blue, but it kind of looks black sometimes, and a vest, and I had this red satin shirt on. And this kid, the same kid that was in the group that were, that was so creepy. They were like, "You look like John Wick." And I'm like, "No, I'm not John Wick." And he was like, "Are you sure?" And I'm like, "This is like a 9-year-old kid." And I'm like, "Why are you watching John Wick? That's like an R-rated movie." And yeah, I know. And so I'm like, no, I'm not John Wick, because I don't fight people, because I hate fighting, and I'm a bit of a pacifist, and I certainly don't kill people, which John Wick does in great numbers. What I do is I share stories and make people laugh, and that's all we can ask for, I think. Yeah, right, absolutely. So what are you doing during this COVID season?
Oh my gosh. Well,
'Cause
quite
you're
a
doing a lot. You're
lot.
moving all over the place, aren't you?
Am I?
I
Oh,
don't know. You seem to be bopping all over the place.
currently, or are you like in this moment? Um,
No, every two
oh,
minutes. Yeah.
I mean, yeah. During COVID, no, I moved simply because at first I was sheltered. Hi, Micah. Oh my gosh, hi. I have to say hi to Micah. I love that Micah's here. Um,
Hi,
in the
Micah.
beginning
Nice to meet you.
with COVID, I was sheltered in place in Reston, Virginia, because I had just returned from Calgary via Vancouver, where I had taken a narrative therapy training intensive. And that was wonderful and fascinating, and really learning new tools for the recovery from trauma work that I've been doing the past almost 2 years now. It's so exciting to think in December it'll be 2 years. So that's coming
That's
up.
so cool. Now
Yeah.
is that through World Bank? Is that all through World Bank?
Oh, that's totally another thing.
Okay, so
So
tell us
that's
about the
another.
trauma stuff.
Yeah. So that's it's called Steer Your Story,
Hmm.
and the idea is allowing yourself to get into the driver's seat of your own life narrative, rather than past events defining your whole entire life. What if that informs your life, and you can actually choose where your story continues onward? And that's the program. So the traveling around, actually last year I did a ton of that. I really miss it. Around this time last year, I was wrapping up a 5.5 month tour in my little Honda Fit. I drove that across the US, and then up to Calgary in Alberta, Canada, and then from Alberta out to Vancouver, and then
Wow.
a ferry out to Salt Spring Island and did some work out there, and then back across to Calgary, and then back down through. By the way, a note of crossing back from Canada into the US, North Platte, North Dakota is not the best crossing point. My car got searched. I got searched because apparently I look nefarious. they told me, they were like,
this unicorn free
yeah,
hugging.
yeah. And I think,
Yeah.
I think they thought that was my cover. You know,
Oh.
they were like, "You're really suspicious. We got to check things out." And then I had this huge stuffed unicorn in the back of my car, and like a unicorn floaty, and I had I don't know, I guess apparently things that look like children's toys. And the first customs agent, who, when you drive, you come up to the little gate, and she's chatting with me, and she said, "Do you mind if I pop the hatch of your car open?" I said, "Oh no, go ahead, please. I've got nothing to hide. Go ahead." I pop it open, and she looks, and she comes back around, and she kind of looks at me, and she says, "You have a lot of toys and things back there. Who are those for?" And I said, "Well, those are mine." She said, "Are you sure?" I said, "Yeah, those are mine." She said, "You're not selling those?" I said, "No, ma'am, those are my things." She said, "I'm so sorry, but you're gonna have to go in for deeper questioning." So I was sent into the building. Yeah, 3 guys questioning me. 3 guys. And yeah, I'll be honest. I was thinking, I wouldn't mind so much if you just make me turn right back around and go back to Calgary. Like, I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that. And then eventually they apologized profusely and said, they said something like, "You seem like a really kind person, and thanks for your patience, and you seem really fun." And I was like, "Thanks." And then that was that. That wasn't really telling you about your story, though. That's telling you about the adventure coming back to the US.
But they didn't. I hope they didn't tear open any of the stuffies, like the unicorn searching for cocaine or anything like that.
I think once they saw some of the other things in the car, they really recognized this is a completely harmless person who is definitely not doing anything untoward.
We got a fruitcake, and it's okay.
Yeah. And when I told them, they asked about my work, and I did talk about the World Bank, which, for those of you who don't know, I teach. "Oh, Mo, you're pretty close to Calgary. Where are you?" "Oh my gosh, I'd love to know where you are. I love Calgary. I miss it so much." But the World Bank piece, for those who don't know, I teach presentation skills based on TED Talks model. So in 2012, some of you don't know this either, I auditioned for TED Talks. They did a talent search all over the whole entire world. And they were looking for voices, things that were different, things people they hadn't heard of before. And I sent in a 1-minute audition, actually sent in 2. I sent one about how I had sold my house and all my stuff to do this volunteer literacy project in Belize. And then I sent one about free hugs and sharing vials of bubbles on the New York City subways to create connection among people. And they actually chose that one. And they wanted to hear about this free hugs and how that creates connection and conversation, and the sharing these gifting bubbles to, like, I think in the end it was probably over 2,000 people during the time I lived in New York City. And that was the TED Talk. And that led eventually to 2 TEDx's, and then the World Bank. They're really enamored by the TED Talks model, that style of presenting and communicating. Mm-hmm. And so, along with my international experience, I finally got a gig there, teaching presentations based on really making knowledge accessible. So rather than so technical. Oh, and apologies if you hear any wonky noise in the background. The garbage men just came, and I'm so glad that they're essential workers, and they're here. Sometimes I go out and cheer for them. Thank you, garbage men. So,
of course you do.
I actually hugged them, the mailman too. Not now, not during COVID, but pre-COVID, I've hugged the mailman and the garbage man.
Well, in England, it's not unusual for people to like say, "Oh, hello, postman. Do you want to come inside and have a cup of tea?" Especially if they've got like packages and stuff. It's like thank you, and people do that over here. It's like
my grandmother used to do that. My grandmother in the winter would invite them in for hot chocolate. And my grandmother, she's the one that planted that seed for me, that when the township workers came, there's a park, a playground, a park right across the street from my grandma's house. And in the summer, she would take either fresh lemonade that she had made or iced tea that she had made with fresh mint from her little garden. Wow. And she would take it out to the guys. So Mo, Oh, not super close by. Oh, you were super close.
Yeah,
Yeah.
4 hours in Calgary, that's close.
That's super close. Actually, for me, I mean, you're talking to someone who drove 13,500 miles in 5 months. So for me, that's close. 4 hours would be, that's a daily drive. But, oh, next time I'm in Calgary, Mo, I'd love to visit you. That would be so awesome. I mean, if indeed you'd want to have a visit. I don't know. Shouldn't make any assumptions. No
I
assumptions.
know, right? Yeah,
No.
Mo's a terrible person. She's really grumpy. She likes to keep herself to herself. That's why they moved out there. That's not at all true. I have to say,
I was
it's
going to say, I
absolutely
think
not
that's
at
the
all true.
reverse. I think that's the reverse from the bit I know about Mo. I don't know a lot. The bit I know is not that at all.
No, she's not. She's not. She's excellent. So then, and then you did story. You collected stories in Belize, didn't you?
Yeah. So in
So
Belize,
I was really, when I heard that, I was really curious about that because I didn't realize that that part of you,
yeah,
I mean, there's all sorts of different parts of you, which we know about, but then, we know about your work with the World Bank,
yeah.
and we know about the free hugs and the unicorns and everything, but there's this, you've written a book because you packed everything up and moved across the world and just, you know, so I really want to hear about that because to me that's like amazing. And then when you're in Belize, you're collecting stories, saving people or stopping people from losing their stories, and that's cool work. And I don't think many people know about that really.
Well, thanks. I'm happy to talk. And Mo, thank you. And in all caps, that's a definite invite. So next time I'm in Calgary, I'll let you know. For the Belize work, yes, it was, and it was also, it's important for me to share that it was upon invitation that I went to Belize. It was not an idea that I had in my mind, and I ended up there really by chance. It was a visit after I left full-time employment, and I was launching into being full-time storyteller. This was in 2005. I just finished my job and went to Belize and actually met a young Belizean and had a conversation with him about storytelling. He'd never met a storyteller before. He was fascinated by it. We kept in touch all summer. And then he invited me back to visit. He set up my first volunteer opportunity at his former high school. And I went in, and at that time, I actually did a poetry workshop based on using the five senses and really descriptive language. And it was such an incredible experience that then I was hooked. So the first 6 months, I flew back and forth from southeastern Pennsylvania to Belize, which is in Central America. I mean, some of you might remember it. It used to be called British Honduras. They gained their independence in 1981. So they're a pretty young independent country. And when I went back and forth, I spent about the first 6 months really listening to the teachers, to the librarians, to locals on what was needed and how might I be of service, because I knew I had a lot of enthusiasm. I knew that I had been really skilled at connecting kids with story and kids with books, because I had been a children's librarian, among other things. Thank you for the map. There it is in Central America, right below the Yucatan Peninsula of Mexico and right next to Guatemala. And the interesting thing about Belize as well is that it's officially English speaking because it had been a British colony.
Right.
It had been colonized by the British. And so it got a very interesting, kind of an interesting makeup, because there it is in Central America where everyone else speaks Spanish and their official language is English, and they don't really speak that so much. They speak Belizean Creole, which is
Oh,
based,
really?
yeah, it's based on the Western Nigerian sort of syntax and sentence structure in a way, and then it's combined with English. So if you listen to it, you can very easily understand it. It's almost like hearing shorthand English. So what happened after
That's
those six
cool.
months of really going back and forth and interviewing was learning that what was missing were really solid English skills, because you could become a teacher in Belize after 2 weeks of training.
Oops.
2 weeks, that's okay. You're lovely too. 2 weeks of training, and you could be a teacher. And I mean, imagine in your classroom that you thought not only like 40 kids in the classroom, but your classroom, you don't have any textbooks. You thought maybe one. You're writing down everything on the blackboard. The kids are copying it down in their little notebooks. They're up against a lot. And the other thing is that their curriculum in primary school wasn't really connected to what they needed to know to go on to high school. And so there was this huge gap. And so the piece in the beginning was teaching using storytelling to actually teach English skills. as a second language, as a foreign language in a way. And then it evolved over time into the story part that you mentioned, Simon,
Right.
is as I was working with the students and teachers, I was really curious about how the examples of stories they used to teach certain things were never Belizean. They weren't their own culture. They were often stories from the U.S., stories from the U.K.
Yeah.
They weren't their own, or they were stories from the Caribbean, because some of their textbooks actually came from the Caribbean, because most of the Caribbean's English speaking.
Okay.
That said, when I was out in the villages, I would hear Belizean legends and tales, and they were fascinating. And they were also from different Central American countries, because Belize has been a safe haven. And I know I'm unpacking quite a bit, because that's the thing. Everything is so multifaceted, right? Like, it's not a simple, just this one piece. It's all these layers connect and affect what you're teaching and how you're teaching. So anyway, the stories, one of them I heard was Tata Duende, who is the protector of the rainforest. And he's a diminutive man. He's got no thumbs, and yet he plays the guitar. And that I was like, how does he do that exactly with no thumbs? That's really interesting. And he would protect the rainforest. If you overhunted or you were doing deforestation, then he would come and he would play tricks on you, and he would lure you away from that kind of thing. And then there were others too. There's Ishtabai, who is a Maya-based legend, which is this woman who shapeshifts, and she her thing is actually to keep people in line from not drinking too much, and from being or not from to be faithful to their partners. And that's a whole nother story. So as I was learning these, and people would give them to me with permission, and they would say, yeah, if you want to share this. And then I started sharing those in the classroom to teach first-person narrative writing. So the book that you mentioned, it's about that. There's a lesson plan that goes step by step. It's even scripted to say, here's one way that you can use this lesson plan, utilizing not only Belizean stories, but what cultures are prevalent in the school you teach in. What cultures, stories maybe are not being heard, and they need to be heard, and they need to be preserved so that they don't die off. And in Belize, it was kind of this rebel with a cause, because they called me that, because they weren't allowed to tell their own stories in the schools.
That's crazy.
They had been forbidden to share their own cultural stories.
That's nuts. Yeah. I'm sorry,
right?
people of Belize, for our colonialization. There are a lot of countries that I need to apologize for, or to, on behalf of the British.
Well, the U.S. too, my gosh. And I do a lot of that when I travel, honestly. I do. I actually say that to people. Say, I'm so sorry for the past and some of the things that my own country has done. I love my country, and there's things that my country has done that were not kind, and I'm really sorry for that. And that goes to the whole building the bridges between, how can we see each other human, heart to heart, human to human, beyond borders, boundaries.
So what's the name of the book that you did about Belize? What's it called?
It's called A Bridge of Stories, Risking It All to Connect Classrooms and Cultures.
A Bridge of Stories, right?
A Bridge of Stories, yeah. And what's funny? I was actually going to share the link. There's nowhere I don't think, oh wait, there is for me, but it's private here, to share the actual link.
I'll find it. Hang on, I'll find it for you. So
and
do you
also
have a collection of those stories?
In the book, yeah. There's some of them are featured within the book itself. And then I actually have some YouTube videos so the last visit to Belize that I made was in January of 2012. And at that time, worked with Matthew Clank, who unfortunately is no longer with us. Matthew is an amazing filmmaker who's originally from Quebec. And he had moved down to Belize during, right before my last visit. And we connected, and he ended up filming and editing for me teacher training videos. And they're on YouTube so that they're accessible. So they're free. And they're in my YouTube channel, which is Storyteller KP, which hasn't been updated a whole lot in a while. I've sort of moved away from some of that. But yeah, those videos are there. So there's a whole series of that first-person narrative. You can find the entire lesson in video. And you can see long, crazy red hair.
So you had long red hair at one point?
I did at one point. Yeah, I don't know what I was thinking. It was like strawberry blonde toward reddish. I don't know what it was exactly. Yeah.
And then now you got your
Now I
natural.
got my pixie cut. My natural,
Well,
my
kind of.
natural fairy, my natural fairy has come out.
That's right. That's what you call it, right? It's fairy color.
Yeah, that's what the child actually thought I was a real fairy, and she said, "Is that your real hair color?" And at first I said, "Yes, that's my fairy hair." And she really believed me, and then I felt badly, and I said, "Oh, honey, no, it's not. That's not actually my real hair color." Maybe I
But
should
you.
have just left it at that. I don't know.
So I got to ask you a question about. I'm going to pop back in a second. Hang on.
Yeah.
So no, that's not what I want. That's what I want.
Mhm.
So let's talk about that for a bit.
Yeah.
Because is about it's like Father Christmas, right, or Santa Claus, right? I mean, we tell these little lies and stuff to kids, and the Easter Bunny and all that kind of stuff, and why? So for me, Santa Claus, Father Christmas, whatever you want to call him, Saint Nick, although Saint Nick has another connotation as well, or Old Nick, I guess, has a connotation. Old Nick is the devil.
Oh,
Yeah. Yes.
I did not know that.
Yes.
Wow. Okay.
But we tell I mean, for me, telling my kids about Father Christmas and the Tooth Fairy and all that lot, it's to create a place for magic to happen,
Oh, yeah, yeah.
right?
You need that.
And so, wouldn't your pink hair, your fairy hair, also be a place of magic to allow a space of magic for the kids?
Yes. And it's, oh gosh, I'm really glad you're bringing this up because I'm
Into
very much,
honesty.
yeah, yeah. However, at the same time, there is that magic. And I'm a firm believer there's magic all around us. I mean, my life has been an example of that. I can't tell you how many times really magical things happened. And things like, can I give one example in Belize that like blew my mind
Yeah.
about something magical? And Mo, I'd be happy to talk to you more about Belize, more about the ins and outs in my time there. I'm happy to have that conversation.
So
I
the
almost
so the
moved there too, but then I didn't. I want to go back to you, but I wanted to address that because it's important to.
All right, so very, very quickly, the link that we have up there is Kristin's YouTube website where you can find the stuff that she was talking about a minute ago about Belize. Anyway,
Yeah, if
back
you
to
look
the
up
magic.
training, if you look up my website and then you search for teacher training, there's two different ones. There's the narrative, first person narrative writing, which brings in the Belizean legends, and you get to see kids in the classroom because I did it with kids and teachers. So you'll get to see them responding to the different qualities of the different legends that we focused on. So that's kind of cool to see the teachers and hear the beautiful Belizean accent, and then hear the Maya, they speak 3 different Maya languages there. So, and Garifuna is another language that they speak there. So you'll be able to hear all that, which is pretty neat. Back to the magic part.
Yeah.
So yes, magic is all around us. And I think with children, for me, yes, there are times when deeply allowing the diving in and immersing into the magic that's all around us, and really honoring that, and it's beautiful. Santa Claus is beautiful because Santa Claus is also an idea. It's an idea of that gifting and loving and kindness. I mean, that's what I think about when I think about Santa Claus. And when I think
I think of a
about,
great teaching tool for kids as a parent.
okay, well, there you go. And that can go in so many directions of teaching. Wow. Well, good. It really could. There's a lot there to unpack.
Unpack.
Hey, I'm with it. All right. So anyway, back to the magic is that, yes, and it's really important. I think, okay, Harry Potter, and I know there's a bunch of controversy about that right now. However, Harry Potter, when I was a children's librarian, I witnessed kids who had never picked up, thought reading was just like ridiculous, and why would I do that? Pick up a 700-page book and devour it in 4 days. And then that was their launching point to all these other books. And that's amazing. I mean, that's amazing. So, and then in the magic aspect of that, the magic that we each have inside of us that can be expressed in different ways. So the magic inside of someone is, Dale, the magic inside of us that can be things like a loving kindness. What if that's a form of magic? In my world, it sure is.
Yeah.
And the magical things when we open our eyes to seeing things in different perspectives, that's another form of magic to me. So in Belize, an example was I had a school gig, and my only requirement was the day of, the principal had to confirm with me, because Belizean culture at that time, and things have shifted with more internet access, I will say things have shifted. However, when I was there, it's a very present moment culture. So going there, even if I'd scheduled the day before, sometimes I'd arrive at a school, and if we didn't have that, hey, making sure it's still on today, I'd arrive and they'd be like, oh, you were telling stories today? Oh, I'm sorry, we scheduled something else, or we've got this other thing. So there was one requirement, and that's okay. Present moment taught me a lot about time, a whole lot. I used to wear a watch. Granted, my cell phone is now my watch, right? But in Belize, I stopped wearing a watch, because if you're there on the same day, you're on time. It really helped me relax a lot about time.
So that's like Tico time.
It's like what?
It's like Tico time in Puerto Rico, right?
Oh, yeah. Yes. Similar. So back to the magic. So this school had not confirmed. I was texting them. They weren't replying. And on my way to the school, I thought, well, I should go there anyway. But I saw a sign. I saw a literal sign. And it was for Rotary Club meeting. And it was happening in half an hour. And I thought, happening in half an hour, the school hasn't responded. I've texted the principal, the vice principal, I texted 2 teachers. I'm going to honor myself in this moment. This Rotary Club is happening right now. I got to go there. So I changed my direction. I steered my story literally, and I went to the Rotary Club meeting, and it turned out, Simon, it's so amazing. I walk in and they said, are you the speaker? And I said, no, actually, I'm just showing up to the meeting. Someone else runs in with their cell phone, and they said, the speaker just canceled. What are we going to do? Oh, no. And I raised my hand. Yeah, honest to Pete. I raised my hand and I said, I could be your speaker if you want. I've got this volunteer literacy project. I've been traveling to all these different villages, and I'm happy to share with you about it if you'd like to hear more. And they said, that would be amazing. Yeah, could you, like 20 minutes? Could you speak to us for 20 minutes? I said, yeah, I can totally do that. I can tell you all about where, the different villages and what the teachers are needing and curriculum. And yeah, so I did. And here's the other thing. I had allocated a chunk of money from the sale of my house. And I was getting to the very end of that chunk of money that I had said, this is what I can spend, because I also need to have for my future. A single woman, like freelance storyteller, I need to think for my future. And I had a figure in my head. They passed the hat. And when they handed the hat to me, to the penny was the amount in my head that would support me for another 2 months in Belize.
No way. That's...
Magic. It's all around us.
Yes,
and
it is. It's true.
Up. And I can't tell you, too, how many times I would sit, I'd be sitting on a bus. They use school buses as their transportation for the most part from, that's the bus from village to village. And I'd be on the bus, I'd get on, and of course people would look at me. Now at that point I had long blonde hair for most of the time I was there. I don't know if you can tell, but I have green eyes. Now in Belize, Ishtabai, this legendary figure who shapeshifts into a monster, also has green eyes, I don't know why, and long blonde hair in some of the versions. So sometimes I get on the bus and people will be like, oh my gosh, it's Ishtabai. Oh my gosh, it's Ishtabai. And I'm like, no, Kristin, not Ishtabai, it's cool. And that was
actually that's so funny, because if that had been me getting on the bus, by Ishtabai. Yeah, Ishtabai. Yeah, that's it.
Well, here's the thing. Nice my first lesson in Ishtabai was getting on a bus, not knowing who Ishtabai was, and the children were terrified of me. I was down in southern part of Belize going to a Maya village, and the kids were like crying and really upset. And someone said to me, and then they were saying, Ishtabai, pointing at me. And I turned to someone and I said, does anyone speak English? And this one woman said, yeah, I do. And I said, please, can you tell me who Ishtabai is? And she said, oh, Ishtabai. Wait, Ishtabai, beautiful, beautiful lady in the day. And I said, oh, thank you. And she said, oh, honey, listen. And then she transformed into ugly, ugly monster. She got spikes down her back. She got long claws. She got hole in her chest, and she was fat. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's no. I'm Kristin. Can you tell them? Can you tell them? And so she explained that my name is Kristin and I'm not Ishtabai. And then the little girls were like, okay, cool. And that was the first time I'd heard about Ishtabai. And then I learned more about her. So,
Oh, I bet. I bet.
yeah.
Did you play on those stories when, as the blonde, green-eyed, good-looking good girl during the day and monster by night?
Only once when I needed to. I was like, you better like keep yourself in check because I'm Ishtabai. And then with the older kids, the middle school and the high school kids, when I would work with them, I would tell them that story about what happened on the bus, and they would fall out. Like they would fall on the floor laughing because they thought it was so funny. And they're like, yeah, white girl, you gotta learn who we are. Like, yeah, man, it's great
Right.
lesson.
And that's a lesson in and of itself.
Yeah. And
Right?
and that was very important for me every time I went somewhere, because so many times I was going to villages where, in fact, that Maya village I went to, there were children in that village who'd never seen a white person before. And I was really glad about that, that their culture was so preserved there and their way of being was honored, and that's really important. And every time I went somewhere, I spoke about, I don't have answers. I don't have better ideas. I have a skill set, you have a skill set, and we're going to take those skill sets and put them together. And you have knowledge. You have so much knowledge. I'm learning from you. Every time I am learning from you, and we learn from each other, because it was really important to me to break that colonialized pattern, pattern of, and it's so ingrained that outside knows more. And it was really about honoring the deep knowledge within, and bringing, and some of that was bringing it out, because they had been so beaten down. It's like, I'm sorry I'm using those words because that can be triggering for people, but their belief in themselves had been so stripped away, and and it takes a lot to rebuild that for themselves, to say, my voice is important. I have things that are valuable to be heard and said. And that Belize experience planted a seed for doing work in Kenya, doing work in Ghana, about honoring their local projects. Kenya was honoring groups, Kenyan-run initiatives that were addressing deep systemic problems in their communities. And one of those was, can I share about one of those?
Yeah.
Yeah, so one of those was this really cool project called Sepaset. And I think I have a video about it on my YouTube channel, where it was women who, in their culture, when their husband died, and this is still out in some of the villages, this is a Lua village. When their husband died, the tradition was that they would then be inherited by another male family member who was supposed to take care of them. However, in reality, they often ended up becoming like indentured servants, almost like a slave to the husband, being that second wife. And so this farming initiative, a cooperative farming initiative, was created by a gentleman named Jared Akemi. And he's Kenyan, and he started this to give them another opportunity, and that was to grow vegetables. And eventually they decided on groundnuts, peanuts, and making organic peanut butter, fair trade organic peanut butter. And so I went in and interviewed the women about their experiences, and they had never shared. It's not part of their culture, the Lua culture, of sharing your hardship, because frankly they would tell me, well, this is just our life, like this is day to day. And so sharing with each other their strength, and sharing with each other how they had defied, some of them defied that tradition of being married to another male relative, but then being ostracized. And then how do you make it on your own? And then working on this farming cooperative. And that's in the book. So that's another book that I co-created with a group called Artfully Aware. And that book is called Persistence and Perseverance in Kenya. And I'll find a link for that as well. and then did another one in Ghana. And the Ghana one was individual, just interviewing taxi drivers and everyday people on what do you want people to know about Ghana? What do you want people to know about your country? If you completed the sentence, Ghana is ... what would you say? And interviewed just, I think, over 100 people when I was there. And that was also working with librarians who'd invited
Oh
me.
wow.
More magic. Some Ghanaian librarian saw, I think it was my TED Talk that I think it was the TED Talk, saw that and then looked me up, Googled me, and then found my Believe Project, called me on Skype out of the blue. I was in Maine at the time, doing a show up in Maine, and I get a call on Skype on my phone. And I'm like, what is this? I don't recognize the number. I'm like, hello. And he says, hi, I'm calling you from Ghana. And I said, really? Yeah, I'm a Ghanaian librarian in Accra, and I love your work. Can you come to Ghana? And my answer was, yes. I don't know how that'll happen, but yeah, let's make that happen. And it took a whole year of, I did crowd fundraising, like on Indiegogo, and then went to Ghana, worked with librarians in 6 different libraries, sharing different program ideas and connecting kids with stories and books, and then did the interviewing the 100 people. Yeah, Rachel, the power of librarian. Yeah. So that was another just incredible learning experience too.
There's a lot of magic that happens in your life. I like Kimo's comment right here. The story about blonde hair and green eyes was so funny. Kristin as a monster is the furthest thing ever.
Yeah. I'm so glad you're here, Kimo, all the way from Finland. Thanks for being here.
So you're pretty tall, aren't you? You're like 6'1" or something like that. Is that right?
5'1" 3/4. That 3/4 is very important. I think I'm 101 pounds right now. So yeah.
Oh, that's funny.
Can I share one actually from a person in Ghana who was amazing that I want to share? And I'm so sad that I can't recall his name, but his story's in the book, the Ghana Is book.
You can share anything you want here. This is why we're chit chatting.
Sure.
Oops, did it again. Hang on.
Okay. So this is amazing to me. This is a really incredible story about perseverance. So I met a PhD student at the university in Kumasi. So Kumasi, Ghana is really like the tech hub of Ghana. And there's a ton of startup businesses in Ghana, which is really, really cool. So I was on the university campus, and another person named Prince Boydu had brought me there. By the way, that's his name. His chosen name is Prince Boydu because he says, if you call yourself Prince Boydu, people will listen to what you have to say. And I thought that was brilliant. I thought that was so smart. So he invited me in to do a speaking event there. And then I met this physics student. So this physics student, PhD in physics, and he's on his the final phase of his research. But there's a piece of machinery that he doesn't have access to at the university. So the university, the administration tells him he's going to have to go to the UK and complete the work there. And he's saying, that's not possible for me. I don't have the finances. I don't have the means to go there. Well, this university in Kumasi is also a design. They do architecture. They do engineering. They do civil engineering and all different kinds of engineering. So this student, he ends up going to the art department, and then he goes to the engineering department. They start researching online, and he finds plans, I think, on a YouTube video of how to make this machinery. So they make this item that he needed to do the final testing. The art students and I think the engineering students combined forces. So they built it. It's even better because they built it out of materials they had on hand. So clay from the ground. They revised the plan of this machinery to build it out of things they had access to. It's amazing to me. And then, the innovation is so incredible when we stop and listen more to people in developing countries rather than trying to put all of our ideas onto them. It's like, what can we learn? What can we learn? So important. And then not only did he use it for his final phase of testing, he taught all these other students how to use it. So now in the physics department, they can do this kind of testing. Isn't that amazing? That's so inspiring.
It's like the boy who made a windmill, right?
Yeah.
He built this whole pump irrigation system out of scrapyard stuff.
Yeah.
And people thought that he was crazy. And then he ends up, building this this windmill, and then he goes to Dartmouth College just up the road from us.
Yeah.
And graduates with honors and all that kind of stuff. It's like, yeah, we definitely should be looking at,
Tons
you
of
know, it's
stories
like,
like that.
yeah, I'm all about using the stuff that we have kicking around.
Absolutely. In Haiti, there were so many stories of innovation when I was in Haiti as well.
I bet.
And that there, it was really, I met a young man named Tigo, who he started 5 businesses by the time he was 25. He started with bicycle repair, taught himself how to be a bike mechanic because so many people, that's their transportation. And then after that, motorbikes started coming in. So he taught himself how to be a motorbike mechanic and opened up a shop. Then a couple of more cars came in, taught himself how to be an auto mechanic, opened up another shop.
Wow.
And then it's actually 4 businesses as I think about it, 4. The final one though, it's so all those fit together, right? There's mechanics.
Yeah.
The final one, it's so wonderful. The final one is a small bakery because in his village where he lived, there was no really good bread and he missed really good bread. So he did all this research online and learned like, what are the components, what kind of machinery? And then he built it next to his house because he wanted it to be convenient. And then he's hired like 20 people to work in his bakery.
That's so cool.
I mean,
Yeah.
I know I'm
Yeah,
getting all
yeah.
done because they inspire me so much. And the World Bank, by the way, I want to circle back and connect that.
Okay.
Working at the World Bank was inspired by my time in Belize, Kenya, Ghana, Haiti, and what I'd heard, because I didn't hear flattering things about the World Bank. I heard things like they don't listen to us. They don't take us seriously. So I set an intention, it's more than 10 years ago now, that I wanted to infiltrate the World Bank. And I wanted to bring in a different type of story to honor the people they're in service to. So in teaching presentation skills, what I'm actually doing is subsuming all of this, like they don't know they're learning it, it's by stealth, on honor the people you serve, listen more to the people you serve.
Yeah.
What kind of story are you telling about them? Is it one that makes you look totally awesome? Or are you honoring the knowledge that they have? Are you honoring their innovation? Are you even hearing their innovation? Is your project even needed?
Right.
So that's why I work at the World Bank. It's not, I mean, yeah, I teach presentation skills, but it's that stuff underneath it.
Yeah, that makes total sense because I know that the World Bank has a terrible reputation. I mean, when I first came over here, 25 years ago, the World Bank was like this big evil monster, and that's been my perception ever since. From
and can I tell you, it's changed, and it's not just me. Like I'm not going to take all like, look what I debate.
Right.
I'm a small part of the change because I've probably trained 1,500 upper level management all the way to country directors and country and VPs. So, and I don't say that as I'm awesome because I train these people. What I'm saying is I feel really fortunate that I'm training people who are some of the decision makers and how things are voiced. And I've noticed a shift over time that, because integrity is really important to me too. So I've noticed a shift over time that there's more valuing and there's more understanding that the data only tells a small slice of the story.
Yeah.
Numbers, behind every number, there's a human being, and there's a human story behind every single number. So it has shifted, and yeah, there's more work to do. But I'm heartened by the fact that there is a shift.
Yeah. Because when I heard that you were, you had a job at World Bank, I was like, hang on. This pink-haired lady does not fit in with my image of, with my image of what the World Bank is, which is, horrible ethics and all this kind of stuff. And it was like, this just doesn't make sense to me. But it when you hear about your work, totally, yeah, absolutely, it does.
And shouting out at World Bank people in a heart way. There's one of my friends, Hanifa, is originally from Afghanistan. And she has an incredible backstory, as do the first question I ask in the intensive I teach a 6-week online intensive. And the first question I ask is, what inspired you to work at the bank? What motivates you? What's your life story in 3 words? What's important to you? And I can't even tell you how many stories I've heard about people growing up in really horrendous circumstances who wanted to take that and be able to be a change maker. And in some ways, because the bank does have such resources, they have been able to create projects back in their home country that never would have happened otherwise.
Yeah, right.
So there's that. So it's, it's beautiful because we're circling to the whole multi-layer, right? How everything is so multi-layered. Nothing is a single story. which
Right,
is why
right.
I'm now going to study narrative therapy, which goes into, in a therapeutic sense, unpacking all those different layers. How does society impact our view of self and others? How does our culture impact that? How does maybe the religion we were exposed to or not exposed to? How does governmental policy affect how we do things, how we surveil, self-surveillance, how we might hold ourselves back? It's, oh God, I
Or
love
if
it
we
so
don't
much.
hold ourselves back.
Or if we don't hold ourselves back. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It's all of that.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's like it's not, it's like looking at a plate of spaghetti, but there's all these different pastas in it, and just saying, oh, this is a pasta dish, but it's not a pasta dish. There's this and there's that, and trying to untangle it all and pull these threads, right?
Exactly. Hey,
Yeah.
I have a question. Did you
Okay.
happen to share Steer Your Story? By the way, Steer Your Story website is so easy because it's steeryourstory.com. But anyway, it's just this, it's steeryourstory.com.
Let
And
me
that's,
make another banner because I can do that. I have
sorry,
that magic.
amazing. You're so magical. Look at all the magic.
Steer
That's my
your
prevalent work right now. Yeah.
story.com. Now, one of the times I've done this, I have to admit, I put up a whole bunch of information and people are like, you spelt their names wrong, and I change it and they'd be like, no, that's still wrong. And it's so I'm like, so I had to go and cut and paste it. I had to go and find out the event because it was just a weird spelling, and I was just all fingers and thumbs and wasn't getting it right. It was pretty funny. So
I
I'd
love
like to
your
apologize.
generosity in doing not only all these interviews, but your podcast, and you're so generous with how you bring other people in, and share, and highlight their work,
Well,
and that's
yeah, I mean,
beautiful.
right. I mean, I'm just one voice, going back to that. And there are all these different voices, and they bring all sorts of different life experiences to their stories and to their experience. And it's just fun to get together with people and chit chat.
That's
I mean,
true.
the whole reason of doing this was totally selfish. It's like I just want to hang out with people that I know or people I want to know. In your case, right?
Yeah,
And get to know these people a bit better and have a bit of a laugh and a giggle.
yeah.
So yeah, so Mo agrees. It's like it's not just a single story.
Mm,
And Rosie says, I'm traveling and have been listening on and off. Very informative information. Thanks for having her on. You're
oh, thank
more than welcome. I tried to have interesting people on. Yeah, people that
you.
make me look smart. I mean, that's another reason why.
I hope that happens.
I don't know.
I don't
We'll
either.
see.
I don't either. On the serious story too, can I just share that, if anyone knows anyone who might need, it's really about looking at your internal narrative. If anyone listening might need it, in looking at your internal narrative, and are there parts of it that are holding you back? Maybe there's something that happened in your past that, yeah, that is, becoming a single story. It's becoming the thing that maybe defines you presently. And the idea of how to incorporate that as part of your story, but it's not your entire story. That you're all
Right.
so incredibly multi-layered, and honoring that, and unpacking that more, and looking at the beautiful multifacets of who we are. And thanks for that. I love that people are commenting, because that's one of the things I do like about it still being connected to Facebook, is that there's that interaction,
Yeah.
and seeing what you're saying. I'm so glad that this was informative, and also, I hope heartening. I hope heartening.
I know. So one of the things I want to mention to people is that even though we normally go for an hour, sometimes it goes a bit longer. But
Mm.
Kristin isn't talking fast to get as much information in as possible in the hour. She she talks like this all the time. It's like you and Tony Toledo. I could just like walk away and just.
Love Tony. Oh my gosh, I love Tony. I was so hoping he'd click in today. Maybe he'll see it later. He is just a ball of sunshine. He is a wonderful human. Yeah. Yeah, and
He
I'm sorry
is.
if I
So
talk too fast. I'm sorry.
that's
Oh,
all
you
right.
have,
No, well that's why it's recorded so people can like play it back in slow mo later on.
and I didn't even have regular coffee today. All I had was decaf. So this is just me on. Well, I really enjoy talking to you. I really enjoyed getting to know you more too. So yeah,
Yeah, it's good. It's good.
all the magic.
So I don't want to throw you under the bus or anything like that. Andy, I gotta respond to Andy's comment now. I look smart, yes. We'll leave it at that. It's the glasses and the English accent. If I was back home, people would be like, no, He doesn't look smart. He doesn't sound smart. He's just a,
Well, thank
he's
God
just,
you're here then, right?
I
Let's do
know.
That's a story I want to hear another time, is how you ended up here as well. But that's a story.
Yeah.
So throw me under the bus. I'm a little worried. What's going on?
So I was wondering, because when I got in touch with you, we didn't really talk about what. Oh, hang on, this is more important.
Oh,
So Chemo just said, I'm currently unpacking my trauma and reframing it after spending a lifetime with that one story. Today I literally wrote 8 pages of things that my trauma and hardships have given me, instead of focusing on all of the things has taken from me. It's incredibly impactful. Yeah, because we're just.
Kim.
So one of the things, Kristin and I were talking a little bit yesterday about this before we got on today, and it is why don't you tell them, because this is all this. I was just going to repeat what you were telling me yesterday.
No, go ahead. I want to hear it from your perspective. I want to
Okay,
hear
so
for you.
because I want to address this for Kimmo, because you're not alone, right? I mean, all of us have baggage. Some of us have more of it than others, and the rich people, the poor people, everyone have these issues, and I've done some really blooming stupid things in my life, right? I'm not, I am not a great. I haven't. You know what I'm saying, right? We'll just leave it at that. And I got to a point where, sorry,
we're multi-layered and we're not perfect.
Right, we're not, and so we're like this flower that is born. We're like this seed, right? When we're born, we're a seed, and we're put in the ground, but we don't get to choose the ground that we're put in, right? And we aren't the ones that choose the kind of fertilizer that we're given in our formative years to grow, right? That fertilizer being our parents, right? And so we don't get to choose any of that. We don't get to choose where we're placed in the ground, whether we're in nurturing soil or if we're in dry, arid soil, whether we get all the nutrients that we need, and that's not our fault. And those things lead us to become the flower that we are, right? And we can push out thorns and push against the world, but we can choose not to push out those thorns as well, right? We can choose to be
to honor if there were thorns, there were reasons for those thorns.
Right, because they protected us. So maybe one point we did push out thorns because those are the things that we needed to protect ourselves. But now as we go through life, we've grown taller and we've learnt more. We can start to bring those thorns in, or just break them, let them fall off, right? And we can open up more. I don't know. I mean, this is my take on what we were talking about yesterday.
Can I kind of add to that? I love that because often I remember hearing so often, bloom where you're planted, bloom where you're planted. Well, what if where you're planted is asphalt?
Right.
and that coming up, and you can still bloom, but the incredible persistence and perseverance it takes to push up through asphalt or concrete, and then honoring that idea of how much resilience that took, how much defying things that took, how much strength it took, and really honoring that for the self. And that's part of what Steer Your Story does. It says, yes, these things happened, and not diminishing those things. Those things happened, they were real, honoring the realness of those things. And then saying again, as you're moving forward, you mentioned baggage, and something I love a reframe of baggage is, and imagine you've got this baggage, and now we get to unpack it. And also, what do we want to keep? Because there's some things that still serve us beautifully well. Yeah. That persistence might be a really awesome trait. That serves you. That resilience might be really awesome. You want to keep that in the bag. You want to carry that with you. And then there's some other things like maybe anger issues, that sometimes anger can be good because it can be a motivator, and sometimes anger can be toxic. So how do we want to repack that maybe? And then ideas of the Steer Your Story piece, the reason that came, and that was like a divine thing that came down, because it had a different name. 2 years ago, it was called We Become the Stories We Tell. And then I felt too final. If I become the stories I tell, what if some of the stories I tell are really hard stories? Does that mean that I am this fragile, or they're fragile, right? Does that mean I'm this fragile person? But if Steer Your Story, I can still have that fragility, and I can have that I can have the boxing gloves at the same time, right?
Back to the boxing gloves.
Yeah, I can have that fragile piece. You know what? If I was in a boxing ring, I'd be the one who'd be like totally. You know how they like sometimes they hug when they're
They hug,
boxing.
yes.
I would be the whole entire time. I'd be like koala on the other person the entire time. But anyway, to wrap up one, and I want to honor people's time too. Just the idea of steer your story felt a lot more to me, a lot more not only dynamic but hopeful. That yeah, I can steer in another direction. You know, how many times when we're on the road, like literally we're driving, we're on the road and we have to take a detour, but sometimes that detour leads to the most beautiful thing you would never have seen had that detour not happened. Or that construction, you know, thinking of yourself as a construction piece, where roads in construction. And then we have a little bit of repair that needs to happen because there's something that maybe isn't fit exactly, or we want to fit it differently. And so with the program, it's all of these guided reflections on allowing the self to unpack things. And we don't go into the trauma in detail. What we do, though, is look at what are the kinds of lies that trauma tells us? What are the stories that trauma tells us about ourselves that aren't accurate about who we really are and who we want to be as we move forward? And then allowing ourselves to sort of honor that, put it to the side and say, who am I really? All these multifacets of who I am. And then pulling out threads, and this is where narrative therapy comes in, of what are the aspects, even when the trauma was happening, what were parts of me that either before that stood up or after that stood up against it and resisted it and defied it. And it's in my own journey, by the way, I've used all these things on my own healing and recovery, and I'm always in recovery. I think we all are.
Yep.
You know, and that's okay.
I'll second that. Yes, same road,
yeah.
same things, yeah.
And that's
and it's
okay.
not easy. You just got to keep working on it. And for me, it was like, you know, when I first started my journey, it was kind of like, oh my God, there's still something else. And now it's kind of like, oh, there's something else I can work on, you know. And it's flipping that attitude of being beaten up on yourself and being like, oh my God, I was such a terrible person. It's like, no, you're a person that had these things happen to you, and as a result, you made some mistakes. And now when it's like, oh, there's another layer, it's like I kind of look at it with joy because it means that I'm going to get closer to that. You know, if you look in that onion, we're getting closer to that middle stem that we're going to grow out of, you know. Anyway.
Oh my gosh, I love that. And you know what? And then final thing is that I wanted to, I think, leave people with the art kintsugi, which is something else I've been facilitating. But
what was
also,
that? Sorry, say that again.
Kintsugi, KINTSUGI.
KINT.
T as in Tom, S as in Sam, U, G as in go, I, kintsugi. And some people might know it as kintsukori. So kintsugi is the Japanese art. It's an ancient art form of repairing broken pottery. So imagine that each one of us is a piece of broken pottery. And rather than hide the flaws, in kintsugi, you highlight the flaws with gold. They would mend the broken pottery. And Rachel says, attitude is bigger than the project itself always. Yes, yes. So with kintsugi, the idea is rather than hiding the flaws, what if we celebrated them? What if we honored them and highlighted them? And there's such liberation in that. I've gone public about so many of the different facets of my life journey. And I remember at first, it was, I think, back in 2014. I mean, I talked about it among friends, but I hadn't like plastered it all over social media. I was very open about my life. And when I first was choosing to put it on social media, I remember some people saying, that's going to be the death of your career. The complete opposite happened, where I think it also gives permission to other people to say, I'm not perfect either. None of us are. But with kintsugi, I really invite you to imagine your life as this beautiful bowl that rather than being broken is even, and it's true, it's even stronger.
Right.
With cracks filled in. It's even stronger now.
Yeah. That's what I was going to say. I don't know if it's Chinese saying or Japanese, probably Japanese, I don't know.
I'm sorry, there's a saying, sorry.
No, I don't know. But it's about when the pot is repaired, the strongest parts of the broken pot are where the break happened. I am not good with my words this morning.
No, you're fine. I think that comes out of kintsugi. I think that may
Yeah.
have come out of kintsugi, actually. Yeah, and so just really holding that for the self, that our flaws are sometimes what also make us really beautiful, because and the traumatic experience, those breakages. Yes. Oh, Rosie, one of my favorite quotes from Leonard Cohen: "The cracks are where the light comes in."
Oh, is
Yes.
that where it's from? I like
Yeah.
that.
Leonard Cohen: "The cracks are where the." I use that quote all the time. Rosie, thank you so much for sharing that. Yeah. And for ourselves, it's also where the light can come out.
Yes.
If we
Right.
allow, the little cracks here where our heart and all that love is to emanate out from us, and not hold it inside, there's such freedom in that.
There is. There's a lot of freedom. So can we get back to that bus?
Oh yeah, sorry.
No, it's because I thought so. No, I thought that
Bus
was it?
was
Whose comment
okay.
was it? Chemo's. I thought Chemo's comment was way more important than the bus, because we all need to, we all have these issues, and some of us, some of our issues are bigger than others, but they're all, we can all help each other, and that's one of the reasons why I started to talk about it more. And I talk about it with kids when I go into schools. I talk about the fact that I was always bullied at schools. Growing up in the 70s, and bullying wasn't seen as a bad thing. It was for guys anyway. It was a sign of like, it'll only make you stronger, which in some regards, yes. And I don't really want to be bullied. I didn't want my head slammed against the locker door repeatedly by these kids that were bigger than me. Did it make me stronger? Yes, but there are other things that happened as well that as a result of that. But anyway, so I wanted Chemo to know that you're not alone. There's lots of us that have like gone through all sorts of stuff, and it all affects us differently. And as do it to the camera, not to
That's
the screen.
there.
Right there.
Right. Oh, there
So
it
yeah,
is.
love to you, and the same to anybody else out there who's trying to get through life struggles, especially now. I mean, it's so hard.
Yeah.
You
A
know,
lot of our
we're
taken away. A lot of our outlets are taken away from us right now. They're
right,
different ways of connecting. So
right,
yeah.
and well, when we were able to meet with friends and give them massive hugs, some of our friends are, or even they're too old and they're in that risk zone, or they have health issues and they're in the risk zone, and so these resources that we had have been taken away. So keep up the good work, and don't watch the news. Or if you do, watch it to have a laugh at it. That's one of the things that I sometimes, if I'm watching the news, I try to stay at a distance from it, so that I can laugh at it instead of being annoyed and angry at it.
Horrified, right?
Yeah, or horrified. Yeah. Which is, it's hard to do that sometimes, but in which case I just like, I can't
Are you
take
bringing
that
the
on.
bus back in, Simon?
Am I doing what?
Are you bringing the bus back in?
Yes.
There's a bus. I don't know. I'm vaguely recalling a bus. Although I'm not sure I want to bring the bus back in, because there's something about being thrown under a bus. That sounds awful. Is that an awful phrase? Like, that's a really awful phrase.
It is. It is an awful phrase. It is an awful phrase. No, we're just doing what we can to help the world be a better place. That's all we're doing. So the bus is. I was wondering if you, because like I said, we didn't talk about this yesterday, but I never really thought about this, because I just thought, I don't know, I was driving back from a gig and I was like, blah, my brain was all gigified.
That's a real thing.
It is a real thing. So do you know any of the stories that you learned in Belize that you could tell us? Could you share? This is what I mean by.
Oh my
Is there a
gosh.
story that you could tell from Belize?
Yes. And I'm going.
And you can say no if you want. Because.
So can I share something about Belizean stories that's actually really important for you all to know?
Yes,
is
yes,
that
absolutely.
Belizean stories, these legends, they're real. In Belizean context, these are real. So Ishtabai is real. And Tata Duende is real. And La Llorona, who was brought in from other Central American countries and also from Mexico, the crying woman, these are considered real spirits. And They are the stories often don't have structure like what you may be used to. They have more, they're really anecdotes and lessons. So there'll be vignettes about what someone experienced. And however, it just made me think of a really wonderful book, and I can't think of the author, but the book is called Jonas Matapalo, and Jonas is spelled Jonas.
Hang on.
Yeah, I'm gonna spell it out because it's
J-O.
N as in Nancy, A as in Sam, and it's pronounced Jonas. And then the last name is Matapalo, and I believe that's M as in Mary, A, T as in Tom, A, P as in Paul, O, L as in light bulb, O, Matapalo, Jonas Matapalo. And it's a version of the Tata Duende story, and also the Alush. Alush is A-L-U-X. That's the Maya version of Tata Duende. And Alush is even tinier and has a magic trumpet that he plays. And the magic trumpet, a magic horn, I should say, it's not even a trumpet, it's a magic horn. And smoke, colored smoke will come out of this magic horn. And the Jonas Matapalo story is about two woodcutters who came into the rainforest. And at first they weren't cutting down too many trees, but then greed overtook them and they're cutting down all these trees. And Tata Duende shows up. Now, Tata Duende has magic in him. So the way that he shows up is he arrives to them with like completely benign at first. And in this particular book, Tata Duende and Alush are combined. And so he gets out his horn and he starts to play, and the men think this is fantastic. Oh my gosh, this is so beautiful. Well, what happens is this colored smoke comes out and it completely envelops the two men. And unbeknownst to them, they are sent into a deep, deep sleep, a deep trance. And they sleep for days, having no idea that they're asleep. And they are transported. Not only are they asleep, but they're transported. And when they wake, they're in the middle of the rainforest apart. They have no idea where they are. They are completely lost. Their Jeep is long gone. It's parked way some other place. And it takes them days and days to be able to find their way back out of the rainforest. And on their journey, they rely on different animals. And in the end, they end up, and I'm summarizing this, I'm not really telling it. In the end, what ends up happening for them is this deep newfound respect for the rainforest and the animals who live within it and the trees. And then they no longer clear cut. And so Jonas Matapalo was a modern version written by a Belizean, and I'm so sorry that his name escapes me. I'm going to look through
Is it
my
David Ruse?
Yes, you found it.
I did.
Oh my gosh, that's wonderful. So again, I summarized it, and
it's a very hard one to find. Apparently, it's a used book.
Yeah.
And it doesn't appear to be anywhere available.
Okay. Well, anyway, at least you can have the reference of it and who it is. And I have my copy. I'll look and see if I can find it in my storage unit. I have my Belize things all packed together. And that story again, so that one has more of a structure, but most of the stories that I heard were from locals who would tell me how they had seen Ishtabai over by the graveyard, or they had, oh my gosh, there is one though called El Cadejo. I forgot about talking about him. So he's a dog who can shape shift. Oh my gosh, can't talk anymore. Shape shift.
It's catching.
Yeah, right? He starts out looking like this cute little puppy, and all of a sudden he can be the size of a horse. And he wears this really thick, like dagger pointed collar around his neck, and he's got his eyes changed to red, and he fights off evil. So he'll show up if someone is misbehaving. And so El Cadejo was a really fun one for the kids, especially the boys, loved writing that one, because they would often do a battle between El Cadejo fighting off evil, and these battle scenes would be super, super descriptive of what was happening. So yeah,
some of these battle stories in other cultures are quite incredible. I mean, I've read the Toyne, and that has some incredible, which is, talking about the Irish myths, and they're all considered to be, real people, real things, real spirits that have happened.
Yeah.
And it's very similar with the Welsh and Scottish, I believe. Um, you
I
know,
think
and
indigenous cultures all over the world that
yeah,
it's really it's there's an incredibly deep honoring, and that was something that was also stripped away, was those stories were made fun of. Rachel, amazing to share, especially shared in the moment. Maybe you'll do a separate YouTube of that story later. Yeah, good idea, Rachel. But I could find the book and share it. Um, and they are amazing stories. They are incredible. And to honor them deeply, because they were often, in Belize anyway, people shared with me that those stories were very disrespected. They were made fun of. They were told they weren't real. And
right.
that's such a disservice to people. So from my perspective, it was always making sure that, especially as a white person, that I was really deeply honoring that their experience and learning, because every one of those stories has so many amazing messages. And that's part of when the students would revise the stories, like they would write their own version of meeting, Ishtabai face to face, and what unfolded moment by moment. We did something called Explode a Moment, where you do a second by second,
Yeah.
almost like a film unwinding, a movie. And then they would share with La Llorona. Can I share one that it just ripped my heart open? La
Of course you can.
Llorona is a story, for those who don't know. It's called The Crying Woman. Oh God, and we're going way over. This will be the last thing I share, but because I want to share from a
It's all
student.
right. It's
You
good.
okay? I want to share from a student and I don't recall the student's name offhand, but I remember the school. It was in Bullet Tree Falls. It was La Immaculata School, and this was working with, I believe these students they were 11, 12, and 13 years old. And we were talking about La Llorona. So La Llorona is known as the crying woman, and there are lots of versions of the story. In Belize, the version that I had heard, and there were flips of it. So one of the versions is that La Llorona, she was married, and that her husband was away a lot on business. She was alone all the time. She was by herself, and she has an affair. She gets pregnant, and by the way, this was a story completely appropriate to tell for 11 to 13-year-olds. Like, this is their culture. This is honoring them. And anyway, La Llorona is pregnant, and she has a child, and the husband eventually comes back, and the child doesn't look like him, and of course that doesn't sit well with him, and so he banishes her. And so she goes to the riverside, and she walks to the riverside. By the way, y'all, this is a triggering story and it's really sad. So if you don't want to hear sad, you can just do la la la. I'm not listening. But I want to bring to the students part that was so incredible. So in the one version of the story, she drowns the child to appease her husband. And then she goes and tells him, and he's horrified. He's absolutely horrified. And then he banishes her a second time. And then she drowns herself and forever wanders by the river looking for her children. Well, we were talking about the story with I was talking about the story with the students. They were unpacking. I asked them, what have you heard about the story? What messages have you heard about the story? And one of the children said, I heard a very, very different story. It was a very, very different story. He said, the story that I have heard is that that La Llorona was down at the river with her children, that she loved very, very much. She was down at the river with her children. And that, by the way, it gets sad again, but this is a child's perspective. This was a 12-year-old child. Oh my gosh, see, it got really tense. I'm sorry, Simon. So 12-year-old child. And he said, yes, what I've heard in my village is La Llorona was down at the water with her children, and they didn't have enough food to eat, and they were so incredibly hungry. They were so incredibly hungry that it was actually mercy, that she drowned the children out of mercy because they were starving.
wow.
Yeah. And so in the conversations with the students, and I know that's heavy, and I share it because I think, and we'll end on a lighter note, I think it's really important to honor the students too for their experience. That may be very heavy. Yeah, to scare the kids, Scott. Yeah, exactly. That La Llorona, there's so many things. Like, the kids would say, yeah, it's a story about don't go down to the river by yourself, La Llorona.
Right.
Like, it's not safe to go down to the water by yourself. You should be with other people. You should be with an adult. So a lot of them in Belize thought it was shared that way too. It was shared in so many contexts, and that's why I love these stories so much, because there's so many. Again, it goes back to multi-layers. I think that's the theme of my life, of all our lives, is the multi-layer of, Yeah, it's a teaching tool. It's a teaching tool for fidelity was one of them. It was a teaching tool for minding your children, watching your children, taking good care of your children. It's a story of for children to not wander off by themselves, because what if La Llorona or Ishtabai comes or Tatad one day? It was these stories were told to keep children close to home, to keep them to obey their parents, to honor, for partners to honor each other. There's just so many layers to them. And in teaching, when I would teach with the students, I would usually start with, I'd put the name of the legend up on the board, and then I would say, tell me, what do you know? I want to hear what you know. Then I'll tell you the thing that I've heard. So then the students, we would talk about, what did each one of the legends look like? What did they heard? What were their physical characteristics? What did they sound like? What kind of clothing, if any, were they wearing? What color was their hair? What color were their eyes? What body shape were they? All those kinds of things. And with El Cadeo too, with that dog. And let them really unpack it. And then let them tell you what were the messages they heard, what was the learning, what's important for us to know that we carry forward. So it's really honoring. And I'm really glad it circled back to this, because in the work that so many of us do, one of my goals, World Bank too, is about honoring that person's story, honoring deeply what did they see, what's their knowledge, privileging their voice. In World Bank, it's privileging the people's voices that are served, rather than privileging the bank's voice. Privilege the people that you're in service to.
Give them what they want, not what you think they want. Or help them in ways that they want.
Can I revise that? Be of service in ways that are actually needed.
Yeah, I was trying to revise it after I said
and also honor their innovation and knowledge. Like maybe they have the solution, and all they need is the capital.
Right.
You don't need to bring in some foreign idea. They have a ton of their own innovation. Honor that first, rather than saying, I have a better idea. Maybe your idea isn't better. Maybe it won't even work there.
Right.
So
because they know, it's all about like not colonizing other people, right? I mean, that's what it boils down to at the end of the day.
And circling even back to steer your story to your own narrative, to your inner narrative, it's like privileging your own voice, privileging your experience, privileging your knowledge over all of these external influences, privileging gaining your self-trust. And Jane says, your method would really bring the story to life for the kids and tell you where they are. Jane, exactly.
Yes.
Exactly. I can't tell you how many abusive situations were uncovered in the classroom that had been unknown. And then there were services extended to the families.
It's amazing, isn't it? Stories are so powerful, you know, and when you talk about them and, I love what we do.
I do too. And I'm glad that it's been back in my life a bit more now, because honestly, that's something you and I had mentioned. And for everybody out there, like something I've been missing is more of my joy and my light. That's something that I've actually, and I've been called out by others too, but I've noticed I've tamped down because I'm doing this very serious work. And reminding myself that joy and seriousness can be together. They can move in tandem rather than having to be separate. That you can do very serious work and still do it with joyful, with magic and with light. It doesn't have to be so heavy. And I've allowed that heaviness. So I think I wanted to share that for all of us. If you do serious work, whatever kind of work you do, that having that light and joy in it is still more than okay and really valuable. Really valuable. It doesn't diminish the seriousness or the impact of your work. I think that's it. It doesn't diminish that your work is really valuable if you do it joyfully.
Right. In fact, it makes I personally think it makes it more powerful.
Yes. Yeah.
Because if you're joyful about your work, then other people will be joyful about your work as well, because the joy is contagious. The same way that if you don't enjoy your work or you're angry at your work, the anger is also contagious. So they're not going to want it. So.
Oh my gosh, yes. Oh, can you share one more thing to leave? This is what I can leave you with a really happy thing, everybody.
Hang on. So Kristin's new tagline is just one more thing.
Sorry, I sound like Andre at the World Bank, one of my bosses, who says, and I have 3 points, and then it's 12. So no, this is tiny for you to take with you. So it's like a parting gift. Simon,
I like that.
If you go into YouTube And if you put Krisitn Pedemonti, bringing joy. Oh wait, yeah, I can't do it.
I'm already on your YouTube site.
I don't know if it's there because it's
Oh,
the
okay.
TED Talk. It's the 5-minute TED Talk I did, and we can leave people with that if they haven't seen it yet. And it's all
It's
about
called Bringing Joy to Everyday Moments.
Yes.
Got it. Hang on.
Right. And if you share that,
I will. I'm copying the link right now.
awesome.
Or do you want me to share the screen and play it?
Oh, well, if folks, yeah, because that'll take us to 1:30. And I'm sorry it was so long. Actually, I'm not. This was really fun. Thank you so much. I'm sorry if anybody had, like, whatever. It's okay. Why am I sorry? I'm not sure why I'm
Don't be sorry. Yeah. We spend, I think, yeah, you're very English in your apologeticness.
It's very Canadian, actually. Maybe it's English too. It's my inner Canadian coming out. That's why I need to move there. See, I've been practicing so hard.
Let me do a screen share. Oh, hang on. There's some more. Oh, I'll do the. Hang on. New comments. Zoom.
Who was
extremely contagious. What we need is a we need a global pandemic of joy. Is true. Yeah. I do like that. Andy Davis, thank you for sticking around. I'm glad you enjoyed it.
Yeah, I would say it's just, you know what, don't be, just share it. Oh, you love what you do, it's evident. I want to do it. Kimmo, you can. You already do with your music. Oh my gosh, you do such wonderful things with your art.
So this is the link, and I'm hoping that you can copy it. And if not, then I'll put it in the comments afterwards, after the show's closed.
Yeah.
Does that sound good?
Yeah, sharing them. I think a lot of them have seen it. So, or not the ones who came on through you. They don't. Yeah, that was neat. I love the cross pollination.
You love what you. There it is. Got it. Right. So everybody, thank you so much indeed for joining us. It's been a wonderful lunchtime hour and a half.
Hey, you get your money's worth. Get your money's worth.
I know, right? Why not? So thanks for being here, and I hope you join me next week. Not sure who's going to be on next week. I need to figure that out.
May I hug you off the laptop? If you want to hug, lean in. If you don't, lean back. Because I always end all of my things with a hug.
Okay.
So if you want to hug, lean in. If you don't, lean out. That was me hugging you.
That was a wonderful hug. Thank you so much.
Micah, you stayed for the whole thing. Oh, super hug to Micah. And Kimmo.
And Kimmo.
Yeah, seeing faces.
It's true. It's true. All right, folks, look after yourselves. Be well. Spread some joy if you can. If not, then spread butter, because it's just as good.
Yes, I would love to come to Montana on the next Calgary visit. Oh my gosh, yes. And your husband's a therapist who specializes in trauma. You got here late. Conversation. The Rose That Grew from Concrete by Tupac. Yes. Oh my gosh, I love that piece. Rachel, glad hug received. Thank you so much.
Take care, everyone. Thanks for being here. Bye. We love you all. Bye.
Yay.